Now, it's AM 650's The Law Show, a comprehensive look at everything you need to know about the law. Now, here's Sterling Fox.
Well, good morning and welcome to The Law Show here on AM 650. Our guests in studio are from Murphy Battista, LLP, a personal injury law firm in Vancouver. Joe Murphy, QC, is a partner and a founding member of Murphy Battista. Nice to see you again, Joe.
Good morning, Sterling.
Also with us is Angela Price-Stevens, back with us from Murphy Battista, who works predominantly in the area of medical malpractice. I almost said specialist, and that's ill-advised of me.
That's a no-no.
Nice to see you again anyway.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Sterling.
Is medical malpractice as busy as Hollywood would have us believe on those shows?
Well, I'm busy, but no, this is not Hollywood. This is reality. Sadly, there are many people out there who have been wronged, but unfortunately, they're not necessarily able to pursue a claim.
Okay.
We have to be very careful on which claims we choose to take forward, and sometimes there simply isn't a choice, even though we know there may well have been a breach of standard of care.
Right. We'll come back to the criteria that you look for when you take on a case. But Joe, just to give us a little overview, you're one of the founding partners, you along with Joe Battista. Tell us a little bit about the firm. It's been around for quite some time now. It's always been, you two original founding members, have always been about personal injury law, haven't you?
That's right, Sterling. The firm was established, we opened our door, so to speak, in 1982, January of 82. I remember it well because the interest rates were 19%.
We all remember that part, Joe.
Businesses were closing everywhere, so it was unusual that anything new opened, and we began with 2 lawyers and 2 secretaries, and we rented 2 offices in a larger law firm. And today we have 15 lawyers. We have a support staff of about 50. And we're one of the biggest firms in Western Canada that does injury and insurance cases. So,
and where are the offices now?
We're at the same place we've always been, which is on the 20th floor of the Scotia Tower, which is downtown
Right,
Vancouver.
at Georgia and Granville, yeah.
Georgia and Granville across from the Hudson Bay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Angela, you joined the firm how long ago?
7 or 8 years ago, early 2007. So I joined the Joes straight from doing my relicensing from the UK.
Okay.
So in fact, I'd been stalking Joe for probably a couple of years on the internet while I was in the UK. I had a fair idea where I wanted to be when I made the move to Vancouver. And yes, I met Joe very early on, shortly after emigrating. I tracked him down at a conference in Seattle and got him while he had a glass of wine in his hand. I made it clear that I wanted to work for him, and it worked out great.
Well, and now 7 or 8 years with the firm.
Yes, I'm into my 8th year now.
Is all of your work medical malpractice, Angela, or do you take on any other files?
Well, primarily medical malpractice. I do have a number of cases where you just would not believe how certain clients come to me. They perhaps had a motor vehicle accident, sustained injuries in that motor vehicle accident, and then during the course of their recovery, perhaps they, either they go into the emergency or later on in rehabilitation, they end up suffering again at the hands of a doctor or other clinician, and so they end up with me because they now have a potential ICBC case and a potential med mal. And so you have to deal with those 2 claims together.
Interesting.
Otherwise, you're in a situation where it's like having 2 schoolboys in the playground and they're just pointing their fingers at one another.
He did it. No, he did it.
It wasn't me.
Right.
And so you really have to take them both by the collar and put them both together and say, okay, I don't really care who it is. This is how my client started before the motor vehicle accident. This is how my client is now, after the potential med mal, and this is how he's going to be. You paint out how he's going to be the rest of his life, and then you keep them in as much. You keep them in together till the bitter end. And my aim is to get full value. I don't care where the money comes from. I just want full value for my client.
Right. And Joe, you and your partner, Joe Battista, formed this company back in the early 80s specifically to do personal injury work. What was the motivation back in those days? I mean, there's a lot sexier, more lucrative ways of making a buck in the legal business. Why did you and your partner, Joe, the Joes, why did you go personal injury? What was the allure?
Sterling, the answer to that question begins or comes from when I was in law school. I got a job working part-time for an insurance company that was going out of business because ICBC was coming into business.
Oh, okay.
It was Safeco Insurance. I worked 25 hours a week while I was in law school, and I learned the business from the other side. Some people say the dark side. I just say the other side.
The other side, okay.
And that's where my interest in personal injury work came from. My father, who died a few years ago, was a radiologist. My mother, who's 91 today, was a nursing instructor. So I grew up in a family where medicine was talked about all the time. So the combination of the work for the insurance company and the background in medicine sort of spawned this career that began when I graduated from law school. About half the work I was doing was personal injury work, and then it grew to 100%.
I'm curious about when you worked for an insurance company, the other side, was it their attitude towards the claimants, towards the insured, that kind of put you off them? Because I gather that was a worthwhile experience for you, perhaps not in the most positive of ways, but it certainly helped you understand what eventually, for your entire career, you were going to be up against.
It really didn't. I didn't see anything that was wrong with the way the insurance company dealt with claims. Their job is to settle claims and to settle it for as little as possible.
Okay.
But what I saw is how some lawyers could be very effective in acting for their clients, and other lawyers very ineffective in acting for clients. And I learned how insurance companies think, how they operate. And whereas that was a private company pre-ICBC days, the claims people in that company went to work for ICBC. And I know enough of what's going on at ICBC to understand the mindset is the same. So it was really learning what was very effective and what was very ineffective. So sitting on the side of the insurer, I could see that. And when I began practicing, I wanted to do those things that were very effective for the client.
Both you two go to court a lot. Some lawyers spend an entire career and never put foot in a courtroom, not once. So where's the attraction there? Angela, let's start with you, because it really is the dimension of the legal profession that we, the consumers, understand the most, because it's what we see most on TV. But it's not what most lawyers do, is it?
No, there's a whole range out there. Solicitors, barristers, there's business, there's wills and probate. There's a huge array out there of specializations you can go into. I said the S word. That was terrible of me. There are various areas in which certain lawyers wish to focus, shall we say. But the courtroom for me, or advocacy for me on my feet, is it's fun, if I can say that without detracting from the serious nature of what you're actually doing. I mean, to me, one of the best parts of being a lawyer is developing the relationship you have with your client. Most of my clients doing the area of work that I do, I know for a number of years.
Right, sure,
I get to know them in really every way. I mean, way more than simply a counselor or a psychologist, who do very important work for my clients and myself. But you get to know them in every way, and you become part of their life. So you take that with you when you go into the courtroom, and you have that knowledge, and it's our responsibility to paint, to bring the personal characteristics, the personality, and the genuine plight of our clients to the attention of the court.
Right.
And that's the fun bit. And it's so important too.
And fun may sound an odd word. Incredibly stimulating. How's that?
Yeah, incredibly stimulating. But it is fun, and you get
get
a real high from it.
Sure.
I have to say, you get a real high. And it's demanding. I mean, don't get me wrong. You walk into the courtroom, you know, your anxiety goes up, but that you have to have that. You have to have that degree of adrenaline running to do your best. And it's stimulating.
Well, Angela's point, Joe, I'd like to pursue with you the matter of getting to know the client, because in a personal injury firm like Murphy Battista, none of these cases, or very, very few of these cases, get resolved quickly. In fact, many of them can go on for years, in some cases, multiple years. So you take on a case. Boy, you commit to something, don't you?
Oh, Sterling, the longest case I've handled was 18 years start to finish.
Wow.
And it began with a 2-year-old child badly hurt in an accident, and it ended up settling when she was 19 or 20. And it was only until that last year or two that we could really understand, or I could understand, the long-term impact of this brain injury on this then 2-year-old.
Right, right.
So with kids, you really have to wait and watch and listen, which is the philosophy I learned from my father. You don't learn unless you watch and listen. And if you think you know things or think you know too much, you're going to make bad mistakes. So there is, and it's essential that we understand who our clients are and how they're affected. And I'll give you an example. I acted for a woman probably 10, 15 years ago, who was in a rear-end accident. And she was off work for a period of about 6 weeks, and then she went back to work and over time slowly recovered her normal lifestyle.
Okay.
She worked as a social worker apprehending children from families that were not suitable for these kids.
Oh, boy.
And when she went back to work, she ran into terrible emotional problems herself, because what she did before her accident when she was healthy is she would go jogging every night. So her ability to go jogging every night allowed her to wash away all this emotion and tragedy,
stress relief,
that she dealt with each day.
Sure, exactly.
When she went back to work post-accident, she couldn't go running, and this emotional baggage that she was carrying from what she did during the day just built up and built up and built up, and she nearly had a nervous breakdown because of that. So it was a matter of me sitting down with her and just talking to really understand the full impact of the injury. Because if you just sat back and said it's a neck injury, she's off 6 weeks,
sure,
back to work,
she'll be fine eventually.
You missed one of the big parts of the injury, which was the inability for her to jog when she went back to work. Created this huge emotional challenge for her, and she nearly had a nervous breakdown.
So how did the case work itself out, Joe? I'm curious, because now it's an interesting case, and it sounds kind of typical. You get into a bit of a fender bender, you get an ache or a pain, and you shake it off, and maybe settle with the insurance company, and life goes on, and you cope with whatever. But this clearly coping wasn't going to be possible after a while. So how did the case get resolved?
I had her seen by a very well-qualified and experienced psychiatrist who wrote a report that documented these emotional problems she had,
right,
and the importance of her running every night and the impact that the inability to run every night had on her. And it really described in great detail the emotional problems caused indirectly by the accident.
Mm-hmm.
And on the basis of that report, her claim was settled for double what I would have expected had that not been one of the added features.
Right. So again, it's the ability to take the time, really diagnose the issue, and then find the support from the kind of people, Angela, you were talking about. You rely on counselors and other clinicians in the course of working with your clients, who are also patients in many cases.
That's right. And as Joe mentioned, it's so important to listen and to take the time to really hear what's being said. And you need to build a relationship with your client to the point that they will open up and tell you certain things. And that takes time. It takes time and effort. And you cannot do that if you have simply too many clients to give that kind of time and attention to. And as I say, that's one of the wonderful things of doing what I do for a living is I have that opportunity to get to know my clients very well. And sometimes it's difficult to say goodbye to them. I quite often get follow-up letters, Christmas cards,
Well, that's nice.
years down the road, actually. I just last week I received photographs from a client whose case settled 2 years ago, and the husband sent me a photograph of himself with his common law wife, who was the one who was very seriously injured, and he wrote on the back, "Yes, Ange, she's standing!" exclamation mark, because everybody had said she was never going to stand unaided. She did apparently for about a minute for that photograph, and he was kind enough to share that with me.
Fantastic.
Yes.
That's a great story. I need to take a quick break here. Our guests from Murphy Batista LLP, Joe Murphy and Angela Price Stevens. This is The Law Show on AM 650. Nice to have you with us, and we're back with lots more right after this.
This is AM 650's The Law Show. There's more of the show still ahead.